A glance in the mirror. Chapter 33. Financial pressures. Sally and Terry were not aware of the changes comprehensive education would make to their children's education, compared to the high standards previously achieved by Harrow's grammar schools. Who could have predicted the lowering within such a short space of time? The best teachers left to find places in the private sector or retired. The new head teachers either were weak or didn't have the backing of the local education authority to force high standards of behaviour. Parents were in the main disinterested, not capable of disseminating what was going on. Homework was not enforced, and the common denominator measured the new standard of excellence. Working wives were too tired to control their children and gave up the television-ruled family life. Parents expected the school to maintain discipline without there being any deterrent factor. Both Terry and Sally thought they could rely upon their children receiving a good formal education, allowing them to concentrate on providing a happy learning environment at home, backed up by visiting galleries and museums with music and drama lessons. They made every effort to teach good manners and explain why it was necessary to speak correctly and be obedient. Terry could see that Sally's home life had been built on similar standards. He could never understand why other parents allowed their children to wander around whilst eating and drinking, or to roam whilst the adults finished their meal. Similarly, not sitting still at the table, or banging their cutlery, shouting, screaming, or generally playing about. Bad behaviour is not just of the present age. There has always been a belief by some parents that we must not stifle children's behaviour, that one should allow self-expression and creativity for fear of restraining natural growth. Terry believed it better to lead by example, by giving examples why doing what you want when you want it leads to disruption, false expectations and unachievable desires. That allowing children to dictate to those around them is antisocial. Children should be taught that there is a time and a place for everything, and should curb their natural desires for immediate action. David, who had a most easy-going nature, never gave us any cause to have any fear that new experience would upset him. He went to school in September, attending the same school as Simon. His work progressed very much on the same lines. The difference being that Simon's class had a preponderance of girls, whereas David's was far more evenly spread. As all parents, they became used to the school's routine, requirements for homework, preparing for school, wearing the uniform, and the times for starting and finishing. Rachel was 3, now looked after Ruth, walking to the shops and library and going over the hill to Grandma's. In 1966, Terry was becoming very aware that no matter how much he worked to cushion unplanned expenditure, he would never be able to put money aside. He tried to explain to Sally that he was concerned that they would never be able to afford all the extracurricular activities, and certainly not private education. Sally said that they seemed to be able to cope, unable to see how their situation might easily be changed by unforeseen circumstances. Her comment, "I'm pregnant again," ably demonstrated her attitude to possible hardship. This was the year the Wilson government set up Britain's first Race Relations Act, whose powers aimed to reconcile cases for discrimination based on grounds of colour or race. This extended a couple of years later to include employment and housing, and it was by this action by the government which prompted right-wing groups to band together to form the National Front. 2 years later, Enoch Powell gave a speech which included the River Tiber remark, ultimately to lead to his dismissal. Still, the unions pushed for higher wages and shorter hours. The wage freeze, which was initially voluntary, proved ineffective. And even though the policy given backing, the Labour government did not consider what was happening after the year was made up. Britain stepped back further from its one-time imperial role in Africa. It was difficult for Terry to keep pace financially with the number of outgoings, even though still doing the same amount of overtime. He was never ill or had an accident. By being employed in a high-earning occupation, as well as being able most weeks to do overtime to pay for extras, he could maintain this standard of living. Industrial strikes, changes in work pattern, redundancy and firms closing were to be avoided if possible. Terry was almost scanning the job vacancy lists, thinking of new ways to secure a steady income. It was all quite stressful, having to do things which he didn't really want to do, neither taking on a new technology. Scanners and electronics in any form he disliked. He was steeped in the past, used to handcraft methods, with a training which locked him into a time warp of hand skills gained over decades. Benjamin was born on July the 16th, 1967. Simon started cub scouting and piano lessons about the same time, and Terry's ideas about making sure the children were able to swim continued. They all started at the age of 4, and every Saturday morning we would go to the North Holt swimming baths and watch them go through their lessons. Having piano tuition now began, and they were all luckily finding a young woman who was about to start teaching the piano. Miss Day was perfect for the job, within walking distance of home and with a natural affinity to young children. Terry explained that he wanted all the children to have lessons when the time came, and she agreed that 7 was the right age to start leaving out the theory until later in the process. The tuition books bought in Harrow at the music shop were in accordance with her wishes, and Sally's mother provided a music case. Rita was in total agreement with what they were proposing to do, and told them of a piano which was up for sale. Terry bought it and had it refelted, retuned and polished, and it was not brought up to the total pitch, for it was thought that the newly refurbished Action wouldn't take full tightening of the strings. They continued until the next retune. Terry was very pleased that all his previous thoughts about the positive nature of music lessons were paying off. Each child, when introduced to lessons, took to them uncomplainingly, as a matter of course, exactly as he had foreseen. Simon began recorder lessons at school, which Rita supplemented by playing duets with him. To further help the children understand music, Terry proposed providing them with professional performances. At work, monthly union meetings had changed from Doughty Street to Red Lion Square in Holborn. At the Conway Hall, recitals were given every Sunday at a very low cost, being subsidized adult education. Most of the recitals were string quartets, and as a family they occupied the gallery. Rita gave us a further venue to try, the Chiswick Music Society. This they fitted in with those at Red Lion Square, and those at Chiswick were for accompanied solo artists, singers and music lectures. Sally's mother took on another part-time job playing piano for dancing lessons at a local school. This she combined with her permanent position at Sudbury Junior School, teaching piano and recorder, taking the children through their exams, playing at choir practices and morning assembly. These teaching posts met by taking a bus to Sudbury from the bottom of her road. The Operatic Society of Greenford used Rita to accompany them, playing Gilbert and Sullivan operas. On other evenings she played recorder with a group, which gave occasional concerts, playing the cello with the Wembley Orchestra. Terry and Sally bought their first washing machine in 1960. It was a twin tub, had to be pumped out into the sink after every wash. It was invaluable, especially having such a large family. There was a certain amount of satisfaction having 2 washing lines filled with nappies and liners, plus all the other baby clothes and accessories. Before this purchase, they, along with a high percentage of the population, used local laundrettes. This facility was available in most towns, offering a washing and sometimes a dry cleaning service. They were part of normal everyday life. You could meet up with the same people at the same time every week, making it a social event. Their refrigerator was bought about the same time. It too made them part of national statistics, one of 30% of the population owning one. The refrigerator became the larder, making cupboards and shelving redundant. It was another modern apparatus, which made them wonder how they had ever managed before. The majority of women were working. This coincided with all these appliances being manufactured cheaply. It provided women with help in the home, giving mothers a chance to take on a part-time job. It was now possible to find a nursery to take toddlers for at least part of the day. Ruth was slow at beginning to talk, and this was not of great concern, but something needed to be done to ensure that this state of affairs didn't carry on, so that every time Terry came home from work, when not doing overtime, he went up to her bedroom and became a speech therapist, using a balloon to articulate sounds by vibration, reciting common words and reading nursery rhymes. Within a relatively short period of time, Ruth got it. There was no looking back after that. She grasped the idea. After that, reading was not a problem. Sally told Terry that she was pregnant again, just after her 37th birthday in 1969. This was not only a shock, but also much unexpected. Terry was sufficiently concerned to make an appointment to see his doctor. Sally was not at all pleased, but Terry explained that he couldn't go on having any more children if they wanted to give every child a chance to have out-of-school activities. Terry was now 34, with 6 children, trying to keep many plates spinning, and as for full-time private education, that was not a possibility. All the children over 7 were having piano lessons, and all over 4 were swimming. Drama lessons for Simon and David, dancing for Rachel, and pony riding for Ruth. Sally said that he would regret having the operation. Terry assured her that he wouldn't, and he never did. Rebecca was born on the 31st of December, a fantastic New Year present. She was active, alert, and in the future, ever questioning. All good signs. As with all the other births, it was successful and accomplished. Sally delighted in having another child, which she breastfed for as long as possible, gaining much from the experience. With all of the children, this went on for over a year, and the children benefited. Some children were blessed at birth, and their good fortune carried them through life. For Rebecca, so far, it has, and her good luck is well deserved. The old pushchair would have to do even more noble service, and so too all the other pieces of equipment. What a massive relief and release it was to know that there would be no more children. The house was beginning to burst at the seams, there being no more space to take up the slack. Quite what was going to happen when Rebecca finally had to move out of our room, Terry couldn't imagine. There would have to be 3 girls in one room, and that was definitely not a happy thought.